We're live, folks.
That's what
All
it
right.
does.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to a discussion exclusively for Minnesota residents and citizens of the great state of Minnesota. This conversation is particularly centered around the Minnesota Department of Transportation's transportation infrastructure update. And the whole idea is to facilitate a conversation to solicit the inputs of citizens of the great state of Minnesota so that the state is able to effectively develop a transportation vision that incorporates all of the diversity of that great state. And so I want to say good evening and welcome. And so we will be asking people in Minnesota, specifically in Minnesota, to make their inputs. And if you're here from other states or from other parts of the world, well, you're welcome to sit in and enjoy what promises to be an interesting conversation. At this point, I would like to introduce Mr. David Elvine. He is a representative from MnnDot, the Minnesota Department of Transportation. He's representing the department here. We have Councilman Winfrey Russell. He is representing his organization, Acer Incorporated. They are facilitating this conversation. It is through their instrumentality that I, your humble servant, am facilitating, I'm moderating this discussion. Mr. David Elvine, I want to say good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Henry, and Councilmember Russell. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here. My name is David Elvine. I am a transportation planner with MnnDot. I've been with MnnDot a relatively short time, just a couple of years, and so I have a lot to learn. And that is the reason I'm here tonight and grateful to be here tonight is I, like MnnDot, we have a lot to learn when it comes to transportation planning and understanding people's needs for the future and how they get around. So if you see me looking away, it's because I'm taking notes. Because everything you give me tonight, I see as gold. I'm able to take it back and represent you in the planning process. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David Elvine. Councilman Winfrey Russell, you were here not in your capacity as councilman necessarily, but as a partner with MnnDot on this project. Welcome, Councilman Russell from Acer.
Thank you, and it's good being here. Thanks to Ella, David, and Mark, and all of the great folks there at Minnesota Department of Transportation for making this happen. Acer is an issue-based organization. We are located in Brooklyn Park, and since the inception of the organization back in 2008, we've actively participated in engaging folks, and folks, by folks I'm talking about the people we target, the people Acer target, mainly people of color, Black, immigrant, and people of color. We engage them around different transportation needs and transportation concerns, working with major institutions like Minnesota Department of Transportation, like the Metropolitan Council, to look at ways of how we can better improve transportation for the people, and we look at transportation in a holistic way as one of the social determinants of health, and also as the founder and director of health equity of Acer. This is something that is critically important to us. We work on the light rail project, the Botno Transitway from its inception. Trying to engage folks about why this is important and why we need to be actively involved. So if you're here in Minnesota, we'd like to say welcome to you. If you are not if you are listening to us from someplace else, we would like to we encourage you to listen and watch, but we really like to get feedback from people in Minnesota who are affected by the transportation plan that the state is trying to roll out. We need to hear from you. We'd like to hear all of your concerns and issues. So before we start, is there anyone who in this meeting who need accessibility materials, or need materials that can be provided in some different form that you can use? If you request that information, we can assure you that Ella and Mark would try to get those information to you, or you can just put your name in the comments area there. If you're watching us live here on Facebook, you can put your name in the comment, and one of us would certainly get back in touch with you. So let's get started.
Thank you very much, Councilman Winfrey Russell. Again, I want to say good evening. Welcome to every one of you watching, particularly Minnesota residents. And David Elvine is here from MnnDot. That's the Department of Transportation of the great state of Minnesota. He's representing them. Today's agenda, we're looking at transportation, technology overview. We're going to ask, I think we've already taken care of that aspect. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And David has already done that in his introduction. So has Councilman Russell. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time having fun, trivia time. And then we're going to get to the nitty gritty of why we're here, quintessentially, transportation. And by multimodal, we mean various types of transportation that make it possible for people to commute from point A to point B, to work, for other reasons. And so that's essentially what this conversation is going to look like tonight. The state of Minnesota wants to engage with people from the community that we reach by means of our platform, so that they can make their inputs as the state develops its transportation plan, what it's going to look like in the next 20 years and 30 years. And that's why we're here. So when you make an input, I want to say this before we circle back to David. When you make your input from Minnesota, please do tell us where exactly in Minnesota you live and what your concerns are. What would you like them to incorporate, embed within their transportation development plan? And that is exactly why we're here. For the people of Minnesota, this is for them. Now, David, let's come back to you. You've already essentially told us about yourself. Is there anything else you would like to say further before we move on?
Well, just that we have some trivia questions tonight, and we also have some comics that we're going to share. And those might seem kind of fun and light topics, but I just want to assure everybody we are taking your comments very seriously. The reason we're going with some trivia questions and some comic illustrations, we hope that's going to be more appealing, maybe more accessible. I think too often MnnDot gets caught up in maps and bullet lists and information that is overwhelming. We're really trying to just have a conversation with people and have our ears open and listen tonight. So that's what I'm hoping for. We have a few fun trivia questions that we'll get to shortly, but the real substance is going to be hearing what people have. I want to hear how transportation affects people's lives and where it's not serving you today.
Precisely. Thank you, David. You heard what David said. MnnDot wants to know how transportation in the great state of Minnesota serves you today and how it may not be serving you. And that is exactly the gap that they are seeking to breach. By facilitating this conversation, to engage with you, to get your inputs on that. So we have Ella, and she is a tech host, and we have Mark. He's collaborating with Ella. They're in the background. They don't want to be seen. They're the wizards in the back making all of this happen. So we're gonna go to the trivia time, where we're about to have a little bit of fun before we get to the serious part, which is talking transportation. Ella, trivia time.
The magic screen should appear.
It should.
Here it comes. It's coming.
Okay. Are you there, Ella?
I think she's going to bring up the screen that shares all the 6 topics that are in the plan.
Precisely.
Maybe while she's bringing that up,
Yeah.
I could just tell you what the topics are.
Yep.
Henry, like you said, this is the plan for everything. This is what we call our highest level policy plan. And so what I hear tonight from people, we're going to take back, and it's going to influence all these other plans about transit and about sidewalks and about our highways. So it's really important what we hear tonight. This plan is dealing with 6 big topics. The first one is called aging infrastructure. And it means roads, bridges, anything you use, it's getting older and it's costing more to repair. And I'm sure many people are familiar with broken sidewalks, broken
David,
roads.
there's the screen, the magic wall.
Right. So there's aging infrastructure in the first box at the upper left. The next topic in the plan is climate change, and that's everything that we're doing or we need to do to reduce the air pollution that's making the planet hotter. Economy and employment is something transportation needs to do for everybody every day, which is get them to and from work. But also, you see all the vans with Amazon and everything else delivering products and trucks taking products everywhere else. They all depend on our transportation system. So that's a topic. Equity, which is MnnDot trying to come to grips with the fact that people of different races and different economic backgrounds have different experiences with our transportation system. MnnDot is really making an effort to understand and do something about the racial differences, the economic differences in income. So that's an important topic. Also safety, it's pretty simple. We're trying to have fewer people die and be injured severely on the roads. And then transportation options is the 6th topic, which is pretty much anything except driving yourself alone in a car. What else do we need to be doing to provide people with transportation if they don't have a car, they don't want a car? How are they going to get to everywhere else that everybody else is able to get to? Doctors, shopping. You're going to be able to need to get to those places if you don't have a car. So that's what options is about.
Beautiful. So, folks, those are the 6 stories, transportation stories, that the entire conversation tonight will encapsulate. Thank you so much, David, for walking us through that. Now we go to the next aspect. And Ella, let's get started. Now, equity, David. You pretty much give us a swipe at it. You want to take another more in-depth stab at equity? What
sure.
Equity in transportation. What is it all about? We hear equity all the time, but with specificity to transportation.
Well, this is a tough one for me as a white guy, trying to talk to and understand the experiences of people who are not like me. But MnnDot is working to do better on this topic. So we're trying to understand what it means. I think let's take a quick look at some trivia questions. And I think this is a point where people can put their responses in the chat. But these questions are selected to help kind of understand where these differences are, these differences by race, by age, by income. So the first question is, what does the average U.S. household spend of its total income on transportation? Do you spend 15% of your total income, 20%, 25%, or 30% your total household income on a car, on the bus, insurance, your car payment? And let's just take a minute, see if people want to take a guess on that and put their answers in the chat.
Yeah, so let me just emphasize that, folks. So there you have it. That's the first question we have. What do you think? The first transportation-related question. Like David just read the question. What is the multiple choice? So which of those options do you think is the correct answer? What percentage of U.S. household income is spent on transportation? And we really would appreciate Minnesota folks answering these questions. Councilman Russell, so at any time, of course, you can chime in. Now, the answers are rolling in, and some people are saying 20%, some people are saying 30%, some people are saying 25%. But we're going to go to Ella, so she's going to tell us what the correct answer is. It's 20%.
So it's 1 out of every $5 in your household is going to your car, to your bus fare, to whatever you need to get to work. That's a big chunk. So
that's pretty high. That's that's 1/5 of your income, right?
Right. And that does, especially if you're making less, if your income is smaller, it's usually higher.
It is. That's a huge chunk.
You want to try the next question? What percentage of Minnesotans have limited access to a grocery store? And when we talk about limited access, we generally mean, can you get there in like a half hour or so? Do you have a car and is it within 10 miles? Or if you don't have a car, is it within a mile? And, when we think about equity, having access to healthy food, you can usually only get fruit and vegetables and meat and stuff at a good grocery store. So what percentage of Minnesotans don't have that kind of access? Is it 30%, 40%, 50%, or 60%? How many people, what percentage of people can't get healthy food on a regular basis?
That's good. Folks, there you go. To Minnesotans, take a stab at it. What percentage of Minnesotans have access or have limited access to a grocery store? They're answering.
Are the answers coming?
There are 40%, 30%, 60%. People are just throwing in what they think makes sense. All right, this is the fun part. All right, bam. Well, Ella just said the correct answer. The correct answer is 30%. So 30% of Minnesotans have limited access to grocery store. And David, let's talk about that. Limited access. So that's good. So that's good. So 70% of people have better access, unfettered access. So that's a good thing, is it not?
Well, if that 30% is all the people of color and low income, then that's not a good thing. And that's something that doesn't come through on this question. That 30%, I think I'm suspicious of that because I think it affects people who are already excluded from healthcare opportunities, from having access to a job. I think it's just one more thing piled on top of difficulty, ways that the transportation system is not serving people who don't have a car, don't have a lot of money, maybe a person of color.
Mm-hmm.
So this number outrages me.
All right.
I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, David. Let's move on to the next one.
Go ahead, Henry.
What is the average annual cost of owning a new car nationally? Folks, there you have it. How much does it cost you on average to own a car? A new car, not a secondhand, a new car. Well, now we're talking dollars and cents. How much? So
it's not just the price, it's the taxes, it's the insurance, it's the warranty, it's the gas, it's the repairs.
Exactly. So you don't have the right to total amount. You can just select option 3, option 2, option 1. What do you think, folks? How much do you think is a national average of owning a new car in the United States. Some people are writing. Now, David, I don't know. Can you see the comments?
I can't actually.
You cannot?
No, I have the Facebook open, but and I'm not actually on the live stream, and I'm not able to see them. So I'll just have to rely on you.
No.
Oh wait, there they
Come-
are. I see them all. I see them all.
Exactly. Now you do.
Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Yeah. Looks like a majority of people are going kind of in the middle.
Yeah. I see a lot of people choosing option 2, right?
Ella, can you reveal? Yeah, it's the high number.
I figured it was going to be the highest number because $8,000 a year, that seems a little low.
Well, because
Okay.
the people who wrote this question are trying to make it seem as nasty as possible. So last question. Last question.
People aged 65 and up, what percent more likely to be killed while walking compared to younger people? Is it 1? Is it 11%? Is it 2, 23%? Is it 3, 51%? Or is it 67%? So if you know the answer to that question, just please put it in the comment section under this live feed.
Beautiful. That's a good question.
If you're a senior, you're more likely to be walking. More seniors don't want to drive. I know my mom stopped driving. So she's got to walk. And you're out on the road, you're exposed to cars more often. Yep, I see the answers are coming in kind of all
answers
over.
are coming in.
Yeah, I see 11%. I see 67%.
51%, 23%. Ella, give it to us. 51% wins.
51%.
Right.
So people age 65 and up are 51% more likely to be killed while walking compared to younger people. Wow, that's pretty high.
Is that because, Councilman Russell and David, is that because they tend to be slower? People at that age, they are less agile than people much younger? Is that why you think?
That's one part of it.
Yeah, that's one factor.
The other part is older people drive less, and so they depend on walking more. So there's just more old people walking. So
there's a greater probability because there's more of them walking as opposed to younger people.
Just look driving. Next time you're out walking on the street, do a rough approximation. How many of those people are age 65 and older?
Okay, beautiful. Let's move on to the next one. So now we're going to talk about policy, design, and operations, and things like housing and transportation have led to inequities for indigenous people and people of color. Councilman Russell, you want to read the next one for us?
Yeah, so for example, we look at the interstate highway system. So in Minnesota, if you look at, for example, Highway 94, and Highway 94, many of these highways, like maybe Highway 94 included in Minnesota, it passes through St. Paul, Minneapolis. It goes all the way up to Fargo, North Dakota. It was probably built in the 50s. So that highway displays many homes owned to people of color, many businesses, many churches, and it reduced housing in this area. So if you go to, there's an area in St. Paul called the Randall neighborhood, Randall area. So I mean, there's a festival that's held every year called Randall Days, and that's when people come together to celebrate and to talk about, remember when the highway was put through and completely displaced that community. That was a largely Black community there in St. Paul that was displaced by Highway 94 that was put in maybe back in the 50s or 60s. So that's part of what we're talking about. So we want to ensure that the new transportation plan that is coming through, that the state is putting together, that those transportation doesn't disturb and disrupt neighborhoods and in our community, like Highway 94 and many other highways around the U.S. Did. So that's part of why it's important for us to have these conversations, to hear your view, to hear your input as to how to inform the transportation, the multimodal transportation plan that the state puts together.
Thank you, Councilman Russell. David, so we're talking about the this. Is it something? Is it something MnnDot is considering? Is concerned? Is aware of that there are those out there, as much as they encourage expansion and modernization and transportation infrastructure, they're also, on the other hand, concerned about their homes and their communities being affected adversely by this upgrade. Is that something you are aware of?
Yes. Councilmember Russell mentioned the Rondo neighborhood. They took 800 or 900 homes and cut the neighborhood in half. And so it's this division, this barrier now that just doesn't allow people to move back and forth, to go shopping. There's the big shopping mall right there on University Avenue. People on the south side of 94 can't get there very easily. So in addition to the lost property values, there are all kinds of things that are still happening on an everyday basis as a result of that decision to put the road there 70 years ago. And so MnnDot is just coming to grips with this. And you might remember there was an apology actually a few years ago to the Rondo neighborhood. That's just one neighborhood. This has gone on everywhere. And MnnDot knows we need to do a better job with that. So hearing what the experience people are having in their communities is very helpful now, particularly with housing. Your financial situation is tied up in the value of your home. And MnnDot took the homes of so many people that many years ago. Their families were robbed of that wealth.
That equity that they had built in those homes.
That's exactly right.
I think it's very refreshing. I think Councilman Russell might agree. Residents and citizens of Minnesota would find it good that you, a representative of MnnDot on this show with hundreds of people watching and many thousands will watch later, can hear that MnnDot acknowledges what happened in the past, and to some extent is remorseful for some of the decisions that were made, but more importantly is cognizant of that going forward, to ensure that people are as little as possible affected in a negative way by this bold new plan to improve upon the existing infrastructure. That's a good thing, Councilman Russell. Does it not make you pleased to some extent?
Yeah, of course. This conversation is needed. There are a lot of transportation projects that are coming online. And the more we get our folks engaged in this conversation, the better it's going to be. It's better going to be for all of us, especially for people of color. We in Brooklyn Park, for example, we are working with MnnDot and Sister City Brooklyn Center about reconstructing Highway 252. So many people who live in this area know about Highway 252, and there'll be construction coming through to turn that into a highway and eliminate a lot of the traffic lights there. There've been a lot of accidents on 252. So we need to. We've started the City of Brooklyn Park working along with MnnDot and Brooklyn Center have been engaged in this conversation. We need to have a much more robust engagement process so people get involved in the conversation, and they can guide for the most part how these projects is going to go. I mean, some of the concerns that we've received from community is that the 252 reconstruction will eliminate some bus stops, and so people people of color are saying that we don't need to eliminate any bus stops. We need to increase the bus stops on 252 because that we need more buses. We need more transportation, access to transportation to take our people to work, to the hospital, to entertainment venues and centers and all of that. So these are the conversations that we need to be having. And this is why I think this is an excellent idea on behalf of MnnDot to have this conversation, to try to engage people of color. So I posed this question, I think last week or so on Facebook about what does transportation equity mean to you? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to all of us? So that's why we need to hear from you all who are watching this today and who will watch later because it's going to be recorded. We need to hear from you. You need to tell us. We'd like you to please tell us, what does transportation equity mean? What does it mean to you?
All right. Thanks so much, Councilman Russell. And folks, if you're just joining us, welcome to a live conversation on transportation on the Minnesota Department of Transportation's Transportation Infrastructure Update Plan. And the conversation is been facilitated so that they may hear from you, citizens and residents of Minnesota, in order to incorporate your views and your inputs so that they may be able to develop a transportation plan and vision that when it is rolled out, eventually it would look like something that serves as best as possible all aspects of the community, all people within the community. And so the question, transportation equity, David, what does it mean, transportation equity?
Depends who you are, and it depends where you live. And we're trying to do a better job of reaching everybody in the state. You know, in the past, MnnDot hasn't necessarily reached out and gotten the opinions of people who depend more on the bus system to get around in city areas, people who depend on bikes, people who are trying to do something about climate change and don't have options. The word fair keeps coming back in a lot of the conversations we're having about this. You know, it means it's a lot of was for me anyway. It means it's fair to everybody. But I think I would really love to hear and see comments from people here. What do they think? What do they need? You know, what do they see other people getting that they don't have access to, or that it's harder for them to get to? You know, like getting to work. Some people can drive to work in 15 minutes. Other people have to spend an hour and a half on the bus. That is not fair to go the same distance.
So that's where transportation equity comes in. Good. There is a Minnesotan here, Tom Will, he says, transportation equity is giving every Minnesotan equal opportunity and access to transportation based on income. Well, that's how he understands it. That's good. And he is a Minnesotan. Now, folks, those of you from Minnesota are encouraged. We encourage you to make your inputs here. The comments you make here on this live podcast will remain, and when this podcast is over, the folks at MnnDot, David and his amazing folks there, will come back here for several days after this podcast, and they will read your comments and will read your inputs. Now, when you make your comment, David, Tom Will is a Facebook handle. Tell us exactly where in Minnesota you live and what your issues are specifically with transportation equity in that sense, like you said. I mean, you just told us what that means for you. So we encourage you to tell us where in Minnesota you live and make your comments. And the folks at MnnDot will read these comments, and they will be useful in developing this transportation infrastructure update. Now, we're going to move on to the next quick question. Thank you. Thank you, Ella. So we're talking about language barriers, lack of information and limited opportunities make it difficult for everyone to participate or to understand its impacts. David?
So that means, you notice the cartoon, the faces seem to be all white gentlemen of a certain age. And I think what our cartoonist here is trying to illustrate is that we do not have the voices of people of color and people of lower income and the people who really depend on public transportation for one, but bikes, scooters, other things, can't afford cars. I think that's what our cartoonist is getting here at. And this means that there's little representation of people who really depend on transportation in the planning process and making decisions. And then the next panel is getting to this issue of health. You see the woman is struggling to breathe because there's pollution. And
a lot of air pollution.
Yeah. And all the cars on our roads, the closer you are to that tailpipe, the worse effect it is on your health and on your children's health, particularly on children's health. We have much higher asthma rates among children in neighborhoods that are close to highways. And you'll see the statistic there at the bottom of that cartoon. 91% of communities of color and indigenous peoples suffer from air pollution that is above the risk guidelines.
Wow. And before you comment, Councilman Russell, I hope we're reading the comments. Comfort Housing Maluo says, we need road expansion on Highway 252. Too much traffic jam in the morning.
Right.
Yeah, I hope you have that. Tom will just, posted his address to show that he lives in Minnesota. He lives in Crystal, Minnesota. Tom, I know you live there. You didn't have to put your entire address there, but I know you do live there. So it's good
over after the broadcast.
Yeah, so it's good we having Minnesotans who are actually engaging. So, folks, that's very good. So, again, I want to say this. This conversation is for the people of Minnesota. The Minnesota Department of Transportation, represented by Mr. David Elvine, is soliciting your inputs because it is developing an ambitious, robust transportation plan and update, and it wants to incorporate your views. It wants to encompass all of the concerns, all of the issues that affect all of the people of the great state of Minnesota, including people or persons of color, people in the immigrant community, all of the people. And that's why that is the quintessential purpose of this conversation tonight. We have another 22 minutes to go before we close up. So we encourage you to continue to make your inputs here. How would you like the state of Minnesota, specifically its Department of Transportation, to improve in specific areas where you live or where you commute to work? How would you like them to improve upon the existing infrastructure that would benefit or that would ease your ability to move from point A to point B? That is exactly why we are here. Every comment you make here as a Minnesotan or a resident of Minnesota kindly also state exactly where in Minnesota you live. You don't have to be as explicit as our friend was by giving her his full address. We just need to know where in Minnesota you live. Do you live in Brooklyn Park? Do you live in Brooklyn Center? Do you live in Minneapolis? Do you live in, you name it? Now, let's go to the next one. So we're talking, David, back to you.
I just wanted to say I am noticing Helena's comment that she says we need a train station.
You say you need a train station, Helena Wallaby. Where is that exactly? Where, in which community, ma'am, do you need a train station? Helena Wallaby. You said you need a train station. David just saw that comment. when David sees it, so has MnnDot.
I love trains. I love seeing the word train, so my eye just goes to it. But it's such a more pleasant way to travel.
Good. It is. It's one of those things you can just lay back and ride. You know what? That's the thing about trains.
Veronica has a similar comment. It means a lot because it helps reduce the stress of people who don't have the money to buy a car. Just that emotional stress of how do you make your car payment and stuff. Also help reduce traffic and help people who can't drive. So that's what Veronica's saying. Yeah.
Very, very good. So looking ahead, David, how do you envision a more equitable future? Councilman Russell, you want to take a stab at that question?
Well, would definitely like to hear from the viewers of this live podcast. But for me, from my vantage point, what I envision a more equitable future to be is that we, especially communities of color and all of the folks who live in Minnesota, can have easy access to transportation services, whether it's a train, light rail, whether it's airplane. At the airport, we can have an easy and fast way to get to the airport to go to where we need to go. Whether it is water services on the boat, we need access to buses, whether it's buses that don't only go in one direction, but in multiple directions, because oftentimes we see buses the rapid transit buses go from point A to point B or from north to south. We need buses to be ferrying people to go east to west, north and south, in all different directions. We also, I envision an equitable future to look like a city or a community where we can have access to pedestrian trails, to bike trails, to services that would get us to and from work, to entertainment places, to colleges and university, to the school, much easier and cheaper. So that's part of what I see in an equitable future, where we all can have not live in areas where we have potholes or where the roads are not fully repaired or where we have broken down bridges. We need to have transportation services, the full multimodal transportation services, all aspects of transportation, of ferrying our people from one place to another, that all of those services are in top-notch condition. And so that's part of what I'm passionate about, and that's part of what I support and I have advocated for since joining the city council here in Brooklyn Park, and that's part of what I'm interested in working with MnnDot, and has been working with MnnDot, and part of this podcast we're having now. So that's part of what I envision as a more equitable future. But it will be a good thing to hear from those of you who are listening.
We have lots of comments there now from Minnesotans. Good.
Yeah. Can I tell you,
David?
Can I tell you, I'm loving this comment from Hippie CC Hippie. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. In Rwanda, people don't drive any vehicles on the weekend just to have clean air.
That's beautiful.
Well, and what is the pandemic taught us is that if we need to stop driving, we can. And if that's what they're doing in Rwanda, let's get some of that going on here.
Yeah. So let's also look at some of the comments from Minnesotans. Alex Bow says his name is Alex H. Stevens, and he lives in Brooklyn Park. And he says he supports transportation equity because it gives everyone equal and quality fair share to access the community in all directions. Let's look at Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter says he lives in Abbotsville. He says, what happens to cars damaged from bad roads? Do we get compensation from MnnDot?
That's a
And then
trivia question we didn't get to tonight. I can just reveal that. The average cost to an average Minnesotan, $550 a year of damage to your roads, to your rims, to your suspension system because the roads are not in good shape.
Okay. That's not so much. $500 a year, that's good. That's not so bad. Not so bad. It could be improved upon, it could be better, but not so bad. All right.
Yeah.
So then there's another comment from Chuchu. He says, we need transportation flow in the Fridley area in Minnesota instead of 2 buses running in the Fridley area. He says his name is Madison and he lives in Fridley.
Yeah.
He says he currently have just 2 buses running there. And Lasana El Kamara says from Faribault, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Do you have a plan for train or buses in Faribault? Anyway, let's continue.
Well,
folks.
Unfortunately, there's no plan for buses in Faribault, but back to Fridley, we just found out in this latest round of funding in the current transportation budget, we've got a bus rapid transit line coming through Fridley within the next 5 years or so.
That's good. That's very, very good. So, folks, we encourage you. Thank you for your input so far. Folks in Minnesota, particularly folks in Minnesota, the rest of you who are here watching, just do so. And, just chime in whenever you can. But we really do appreciate comments from people who live in Minnesota, especially the sort of comments we've been getting so far. Ella, thanks there for doing a great job. There's We Said Jigbe says we need a light rail that passes through Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Crystal, Robbinsdale, North Minneapolis, onward to the various cities, onward to the international airport. Man, that sounds like a grandiose light rail, man.
That's what we need, vision.
Yeah, I like the grandiosity of his suggestion.
Well, that plan is already being worked on through the Blue Line extension. The Blue Line extension will connect, will come up to Brooklyn Park and end at the Target North Campus in Brooklyn Park. To take folks from there through to the Target Field downtown Minneapolis and connect with the line that goes to. I'm not sure what line is that. Is that the green line or red line? The line that goes to the airport and then to the Mall of America. So
it's blue, yeah.
Okay. So okay. So this would be the Blue Line extension, right?
Yep.
Beautiful. Elvis Prosper says from Brooklyn Center to New Brighton, it's kind of difficult to commute via public transportation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
He's being generous. It's really difficult.
Okay, that's wonderful. I like the inputs. I'm sure David is elated as well. So is Councilman Russell. Well, we're gonna move on to the next item on the agenda. Ella, you're doing a great job. Please move. We're just following your lead here.
I just want to say I just saw Abby's comment that Minnesota transportation is horrible, so sad. And Abby, I don't want you to think I didn't see that or I'm ignoring it. I'm hearing that.
Abby Briama, could you please be more specific? I'm sure the Minnesota Department of Transportation would appreciate some specificity to what aspect of transportation you're talking about. Is it public transportation, such as the bus, the train, and from what particular area? Like something like what Elvis Prosper said. That would be really appreciated. Thank you so much. Ella? Councilman Russell, you want to say something?
Well, the one said we've talked about equity. I don't know if we have touched on, David, if we touched on the economy and employment, that the impact of transportation on the economy and employment.
I think we should. It's a very relevant topic or story. Economy and employment. What's it all about? Quiz time.
We have a quiz again to get us acquainted with what we're talking about here.
Precisely.
What kind of jobs employ the most people in Minnesota?
That's a good question, folks. So those of you
Yeah.
Minnesotan residents, what kinds of jobs do most people in Minnesota work in? What kinds of jobs? You have education and healthcare, transportation, trade and utilities, manufacturing. Folks, take a stab. What kinds of jobs employ the most people?
3 big sectors of the economy there: education, healthcare.
Tom Will says manufacturing. Alvin Kodal says healthcare. Okay, we're talking Minnesota here, folks.
I think
We want Minnesota.
people figured this one out. I think people have got the right answer.
Healthcare. Again, somebody says healthcare.
Yep.
Education and healthcare win.
They got that one.
I think that was a giveaway. It was pretty easy.
Man, you combine those two big things. I mean, come on, people are gonna get that one. It's a clue.
Okay, which of these make up the majority of goods that are moved on Minnesota's rail lines, trucks, and waterways? Grain and milled cereals, mined metal ores, chemicals, or oil? And by oil, I think we're talking crude oil.
Right, those oil trains that come from North Dakota. A lot of them go through Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So please put your answer in the comment box. Which of these make up the majority of goods that are moved on Minnesota's rail lines, trucks, and waterways? 1, are they grain and milled cereals? 2, are they mined metal ores? Or 3, are they chemicals? And 4, are they oil?
Abby Briema says green and milled cereals.
Abby's onto something.
Abby definitely is.
I think Abby
says oil.
Abby might be an economist.
All right. Agnes Samuka Moba said green and milled cereals.
Yeah.
Okay.
General Mills, Pillsbury.
Yeah, you have all those big cereal makers there, right?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah.
Big companies, yep.
The next question. It takes about 34 minutes to drive from Robbinsdale to a job in Shakopee. About 25 miles.
Mm-hmm.
How long does the same trip take by public transportation? That's another question.
The reason we picked Shakopee is because Amazon has a distribution center there.
Okay, gotcha. Good.
So a lot of jobs that are appealing to people from all over the Twin Cities region.
Okay.
How long
does it take? Has a big installation there. All right, folks. So there you have it. Those of you who are familiar with this area, that's the question. It takes about 34 minutes to drive from Robbinsdale to a job in Shakopee. About 25 miles. That's the distance. That takes about 34 minutes if you're driving. But how long would that same distance take if you were commuting by means of public transportation? Is it 59 minutes? Is it 1 hour, 32 minutes? Is it 2 hours and 46 minutes? That's the question. If you're familiar with that area, give us your answer.
Abby, do you work for MnnDot?
What did Abby say?
I think
yes,
Abby
you got it right, I think.
I think Abby knows the answer.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a huge difference compared to 34 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's horrible about public transportation.
Yeah, look at that. Ella put the answer up.
Yeah.
No.
A distance, if I was driving my own car, I would take 34 minutes and public transportation nearly 5 times the same.
Go on Google Maps and ask it to map it by car and then change it to map it by transit. And you'll see this is about what it is.
It's terrible.
It means if you live in Robbinsdale, you can't work in Shakopee if you don't have a car.
Woo. And that's not fair. That's not equity.
But if the light rail was to come through, it would be a little easier because there will be a stop or probably several stops in Robbinsdale, right, David?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Tom Will says, in Crystal, we need bus stop improvements, shelters, benches, bike racks, and other amenities to make transit comfortable and convenient for customers.
Yeah. Just think how comfortable it is to sit in your car you have a nice padded seat.
Good.
It should be that comfortable for everybody.
Councilor Rosa, you want to read this question for us? We've got about 5 more minutes to go, folks. We're here for now.
Transportation is a big source of jobs, and in 2018, the sector directly employed what's the percentage of people that were employed in the workforce, in the transportation workforce? We have 3 choices here: 4.2%, 7.5%, or 9.7%.
Truck drivers, Uber drivers.
So we have some responses. Some folks said, Abby says 9.7%.
Okay. 7.5% gets it.
Well, yeah, Abby, I'm sorry you got that wrong.
Yeah, she did get that one
wrong. So the correct answer is 7.5%.
Yeah. Not too far, but a little off. Okay. Transportation makes our economy go. It's a part of how people get to work, shop, visit a doctor, and much more. Businesses of all kinds depend on reliable transportation for their workers, customers, and movement of goods. Just how essential transportation is. Folks, if you're just joining us, this is a conversation. We're just about wrapping up. Very interesting. It is facilitated by the Minnesota Department of Transportation, represented an able representative in the person of David Elvine, working in concert with Acer Incorporated of Councilor Winfrey Russell. And I am your humble servant, Henry Costa. Only moderating this. I have really no fish to fry in this. We're just facilitating this conversation so that the good folks of the great state of Minnesota can make the inputs to help the folks at MnnDot develop a transportation or complete an ongoing developing transportation update that they hope would encapsulate all of your concerns in order to make transportation tenable, more convenient, more practical, more reasonable, more fair, and more equitable. Aren't those the words, David, that would describe what you guys are working on?
That's a good description. We're working on a plan that looks 20 years in the future. So that's, when your children are grown, what kind of a world do you want them to be in, and what kind of transportation do you want them to have?
We guys, we started a little late, I think about 5 or so minutes. So I don't know if we can add that.
We are going to make up for that. Councilor Russell, thanks for that. I'm having fun. I don't know about you guys, but I'm having fun.
Yeah. So if we can do maybe another one, we just did the economy.
We certainly should.
Yeah. So so if we can do another one, David, you can probably pick one because I picked the last one.
I'm happy to pick. I know which one I'm going to pick too.
Okay. Let's see what David picks.
Okay. Did we wrap up with our economy question?
I think we did.
Right. So there was a little slide there that just indicated, the importance of, it's not only from the worker's point of view to be able to get to work. Think of the employer's point of view. If the transportation system doesn't provide them with, enough capacity to bring people to work, businesses are not going to come here. So I guess the general question here is maybe people could just type in a word or two. Do you have trouble getting to your job? getting to go shopping, again, back to getting healthy food, services, to the doctor's office. Is transportation helping you or not helping you get there these days?
Good. My friend Godson Daniel Giflo Sr. lives in Minnesota. A beautiful family, tying a knot next month. He says, winters commutes. One of the most difficult experiences in Minnesota. He's trying to say during the winter it's difficult to commute, and he says anything MnnDot can do to help ease the stress for residents would be really nice.
So is that commuting by car or by bus? We hear a lot of people say you got to shovel the bus stops. Is that what's going on there, or sidewalks?
Brother Giflo, what is your particular concern? Is it trying to clear the snow for the bus, or trying to clear the driveway for your own vehicle, or what is it? Okay, good. So this question, how does transportation help or hinder access to jobs, goods, and services for you or your family? That's a good question.
Think back on that example of 34 minutes by car versus 2 hours and 46 minutes by bus.
It sums that up. It sums that up so accurately. It hinders access to jobs if that's how long you have to take by public transportation. Yep.
Eric is saying my concern is traffic to work and after work. So congestion, too many cars out there, takes too long.
Okay. Beautiful. Let's move on to the next quick question, or to the next topic or story. Everybody shares the cost of transportation. Car and truck drivers pay fuel taxes, vehicle registration, and sales tax. There are taxes and fees paid by air, waterway, and rail transports as well. Even bus riders pay a fare. That's true. Let's move on. Okay, so we take this as our last question, and then we can go to the final topic or transportation story. Thereafter, we wrap up.
Sure. So maybe just a word or two about what transportation can better serve you as a worker if you need to get somewhere, or if you're needing to get to a business, or if you own a business. What do we need to be doing? And again, thinking 20 years in the future, what do you need to see?
That's
Robert's
good.
saying secondary roads need to be improved. Right. And that's a great point, actually, because, even though I'm from MnnDot, this plan is for MnnDot and all the other agencies that do transportation projects. So the counties, the cities. So you're talking, when you're giving me a comment, you're talking to them too.
Yep. Okay. So what do? We go to the next transportation story, Councilman Russell. Thank you very much, folks. Now David is supposed to pick the next transportation story.
I love transportation options because it gets people out of their cars.
Good. What is transportation options, David?
This is about everything, any way you can move without driving yourself in a motor vehicle, in a car. So we have some quizzes, questions. Do we have time, Henry?
We certainly do.
All right. There's 5.7 million people who live in Minnesota. How many of them have a driver's license? All of them? 5.7 million?
No way. Can't be. Not possible. Let's see what Minnesotans would say. Yeah, good question. I didn't know
What do people
that. I
think?
just learned something.
What do people think?
Folks, of the 5.7 million people who live in Minnesota, how many of them are licensed drivers? There are three options. 5.7, that's the total population, or 4.5, that's just around 80% of the population, or 3.4, just around 60-something% of the population. What is the option? Somebody says 3.4 million. Zizu. Okay. Zizu says 3.4 million. Cole Gloria Vocal Moba says 3.4. John
Yeah.
Wade says 3.4.
I think people figured it out.
Yeah. Bill says 3.4 is correct.
3.4, yeah.
Thanks, Ella. So, yeah.
But you know what that means, though?
That means a lot of people drive in Minnesota.
That means a lot of people don't drive.
Okay.
5.7 minus 3.4.
Oh, yeah, you're right, David. Are you kidding?
Okay.
It's about 2 out of 5 people don't have a driver's license.
That's a very high number.
But they still all need to get the same places that everybody else does. So
even though they don't drive a car, yeah.
That's the point of that question.
That's a beautiful one. Okay, the next one. Driving alone accounts for about 78% of all trips to work in Minnesota. What is the second most often way that people get to work in Minnesota? So most people drive alone. Those are people who only own cars. Those who don't, they still get to work. Well, how do those people get to work? Do they get to work by public transportation, the train, the bus, or something like that? Or do they carpool? Carpool is lots of folks, filling up one car and going in the same direction. Or do they use bike? So that's it. What is the second most often way that people go to work? Public transportation, carpooling, or biking? Seba Monigo says public transportation. Madam Hippie says carpool. Bill says public transportation. Veronica Perkins says public transportation.
Tied. Oh, public transportation might be winning out.
I'm going to put my money on public transportation. Now Zia says public transportation. Carpool? Are you kidding?
It's about 8%.
Man.
More people are carpooling than take the bus. It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
Councilman Russell, did it seem like the likely answer to you?
No, I actually thought it was about being biking. Because,
yeah, man. Because
there's a lot of people in Minnesota who bike,
Councilman Russell loves biking, so,
So I have a bias, right?
Yeah, you're biased. But I was actually thinking it was public transportation.
Wow.
Okay. So the next one, Councilman Russell, you want to read that for us?
How many volunteers are there in Minnesota who regularly drive older adults and non-drivers to healthcare, shopping, and other essential services? Is it 500? Is it 1,200? Or is it 2,000? Put your answer in the comment box, and let's see who gets it right.
Yep, that's very good.
So this is not Uber and Lyft. These are volunteers in small towns that they do this without even getting mileage reimbursement in a lot of cases. They just work with the local senior centers to take people to the doctor or take them shopping. I think Bill's got the answer.
2,000?
2,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see what Ella says.
Ella says 2,000.
Ella says 2,000. Bill, you're correct. Good. Let's move on to the next one. David, you want to take a stab at that?
Oh, this is a tough one. Services like Uber and Lyft are considered to be what type of transportation? Are they public transit? Is it car sharing? Or is it ride sourcing?
Yeah, right. That one is so easy, David. Come on.
I can't even remember the answer, and I wrote the question.
Yeah, right.
I'm embarrassed.
There you have it. What Services such as Uber and Lyft, of course, they're quite mundane nowadays. How are they considered? Which category would they fall into? Would they fall into the public transit category, or the public transit category, or car sharing category, or ride sourcing? Ride sourcing.
I think people are getting it. It's right. Yeah. The
can certainly be public. That's what I thought. Ride sourcing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's just more just to remind people that there's other ways to get around.
Precisely. That's a beautiful question, David. Thanks for that. It was kind of tricky though. Car sharing and ride sourcing.
Ride sourcing, I know.
Yeah. It was tricky. I like that. All right. These days, more Minnesotans cannot or choose not to drive or own cars, but they still need to go all the places that everyone else can. The number of transportation options can depend on where you live. That's a good point. Some people live in areas where they don't have certain types of public transportation, right, David?
Yeah, like that on the left, you see it's just a house on its own. There's probably not a bus going by. The only way you're going to get somewhere is by car. Well, there is a sidewalk, though. We got to give them that.
Then if Councilman Rosa lived there, he will use his bike.
Yes.
All right, good, beautiful. All right, so let's move on to the quick question. Councilman Rosa.
What options do you have for running errands or getting to work? What are some of the options that you currently have in doing those in running your errands?
And you see, folks, the thing about these quick questions is that they're specific. They're meant to elicit a specific response from you, one that applies to you, right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah. What options? If you want to run a quick errand, or when you do go to work, what are the options? Is it just like that picture we just saw? Does it have to be that you must own a car, or do you live close to a bus station or a train station? What are your options? And we want to hear from Minnesotans, particularly Minnesotans. Okay.
Like right now, if I needed to go to the grocery store, if you needed to go to the grocery store, how could you get there? I need some ice cream right now. How am I going to get there?
Yeah, someone just said, Abby says Uber.
Lots of people are saying Uber.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Abby says Uber. Early T. Flan Senior says Uber. Jesse Farmer says Uber.
Hippie says driving though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cole Gloria says get a ride from friends. Man, you're lucky if you have friends who are available.
I know, right?
You got good friends.
Yeah. Okay. Bill says driving. Okay, good. That's very good. All right, fantastic. We're gonna move on to the next quick question. In some places, there are many options for transit. Cars, buses, bicycles, rail, you name it, car sharing, taxis, biking, walking. In other places, travel options are more limited. Say if you live in, say, certain parts of Minnesota,
especially greater Minnesota. Yep. Yeah.
Like a place like St. Michael, right? For example, I have a friend who lives up there, and beautiful. But of course, you have limited transit options or travel options. Yeah, good.
And then this slide shows that, hey, maybe there's some people who are driving but would rather not be driving.
Yeah.
Precisely.
So again, this question comes back to, think 20 years in the future. What do you want to see?
That's a question for Minnesotans. What do you want to see, folks? 20 years from now. The current transportation update that they're working on, is meant to be in existence when it is rolled out. It's going to be around for the next 20 years or so. That's what they want to do, to basically modernize the transportation system infrastructure. So in the next 20 years, what do you want to see? David, you want to say something?
Well, just that in 20 years, do you still want to be driving a car every day to work? Or do you want to be some other way? You know, when you think about your own health and your own job, do you want to be driving 45 minutes a car, or would you like to walk 10 minutes?
John Wade says he wants a flying Uber.
Yep. Love that.
A flying Uber. All right, good. Or perhaps, yeah. Light rails. Bill says light rails.
Yeah, lots of choices.
Yeah,
people want to have choices.
Yeah, Weedy Thompson says that. Yeah, lots of transportation choices. You know, with convenience, of course. Somebody says trolley bus. Are you kidding? In 20 years? Good. All right. Trolley bus.
Flying Uber. There it comes again.
It comes again. Flying Uber. Well, David, you have to put that in. Flying Uber. Make some room for that.
But I'm, like I said at the beginning, I'm going to take that comment seriously, because what it says is what I think Early is saying to me is that we need to come up with something more visionary, something better than we have now.
I saw this thing, this video. I follow this lady, this page, Supercar Blondie, and she did a video of a futuristic flying car, and it's gonna take 6 passengers, or 4, and it's gonna fly as high as a few thousand feet, and it can travel up to, I think, 150 miles, and it moves at about 100 miles, I think 100 miles per hour, something like that. Yeah, and it's meant to be launched in, I think, 3 to 4 years. Yeah. So those things are not just imaginary. They've been built.
Oh yeah.
And in time to come, they're gonna be out there, in the air, on the road.
Well, this was great. This was
Somebody
just
said,
great.
Veronica says, better roads and better cars. I like that. Isn't that amazing?
Yep.
Anything,
The roads are going to be here in 20 years. They better be better.
Yeah, they better be better in 20 years. Thank you very much, folks, for that. That brings us to a close to the particular chapter. Jima Cisco says, good planning for the 252 highway. That will make it easy to get to 610 west and east. You guys know where that is?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, we've talked about it already, but I'm sure David can elaborate on the 252 plan and what are in the works. I can just talk about what we are doing on the city council in working with MnnDot to ensure that all of our folks are engaged in part of the conversation around the construction of 252, and that would dump it into 610, dump the traffic into 610. Now, is 252 is considered a trunk highway? David, is that considered a trunk highway?
That's right. So it's funded by state highway funds, and then it connects to 94, which is an interstate highway. So, you know, there's other federal money that comes into that. But yeah, we need good planning on that. And we actually have a lot of people working on that project right now, because we know that 252 cuts that community in half. If you're trying to go across 252, if you're walking or on your bike, it's much more difficult than if you're in a car. So there's a team working on that, and I think we're going to take a new approach on that one. I'm really hopeful that pedestrians and bicyclists will be better accommodated in the future there.
Okay.
In the new 252 plan, okay?
Yes.
Elvis Prosper says, I do suggest that Minnesota work on the traffic tickets. It's really high here, 190 and up. David, is that something that falls within your purview, your jurisdiction?
I cannot fix traffic tickets. No.
That's a different department. All right, good. Thank you very much. Beautiful. So there are lots of interesting things. Some of them already in motion, underway, like the 252 highway that David and Councilman Russell just talked about. Folks, this is how we're going to bring this to an end. We want to thank Ella, our tech host, and Mark, both of them. Fantastic job. We thank you for making this all happen, rolling those different stories across the screen, having some great trivia questions as well, spicing this important conversation with some fun and some triviality, but of course, just trying to get folks to participate, and lots of inputs. And to those of you who will watch this podcast after it has ended, you may leave your comments, your inputs. The folks at MnnDot, David and his folks will read them. Councilman Russell at Acer, who's working in partnership with MnnDot on this project, they will also be going back and every now and then to these to this podcast to read your comments and incorporate them, use them as best as they want. So I'm going to go to David to get his parting comments, and then come to Councilman Russell to close it. David, thank you very, very much. I think we had a great time here. Let's give you a minute to close up.
We definitely did. It's a wonderful night out, and so everybody who took the time to be with us tonight, thank you, and good night.
Beautiful, David. Councilman Russell?
And I'd like to say thanks to you, Henry, and it would probably be a good thing to see Ella and Mark, who behind the scenes to come.
Ella, please, just for you guys, we gotta see you. There's Ella. Where's Mark?
There goes Mark. So that's the full team. So I want to say thanks to the folks at Musican and MnnDot, and Henry, to you too, for a very fascinating conversation. But to all of the viewers and all of the participants and all of the folks who made the comments, and like Henry said earlier, you still have an opportunity to comment to let us know what you think, what you would like to see multimodal transportation look like in Minnesota. So we need your input. Your input will guide how the future is going to look like with respect to transportation. So we look forward to hearing from you, and we look forward to having more conversations like these and more engagement as we move forward. So thanks again to everyone, and to Henry and the folks at MnnDot. For me, here at Acer and the Brooklyn Park City Council, I'd like to say have a great evening and have a good night.
We're gonna have we can't just show Ella and Mark without having them say something. Mark.
Well, Council Member, I'm sorry, I'm just going to add one more thing. You know, the hour and a half that we spent together has been so insightful, entertaining, and valuable. I would encourage everybody, and there are many of you still on, please go to minnesotago.org/stories, because we didn't get to 3 topics, because that would have taken 3 hours, and we got to have dinner, right? But you have time to do it on your own, whether it's later today or tomorrow. There are many of you who might not have chimed in because it's public, or might not have gotten to the topics because we didn't get to it. So please go minnesotago.org/stories so you can input and share your insight on every way. I will tell you that when you go there, there are only 2 trivia questions, so it's shorter, but still the substance questions are there. And we really want to know from you, because equity and participation is the most important thing from now and in the future in our country and in our state.
There you have it. It's posted and pinned the website right there. Everyone can see it. Ella, let's hear you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. It's been so insightful to listen to everyone's experience and input on the plan. I know we'll have a lot of great conversations to come as we share this with the rest of the MnnDot team.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, guys. This has been incredible. And that's the link. You can watch the video later. And I want to say good evening to all of you. Thanks to the folks at MnnDot, Minnesota Department of Transportation, in concert with Acer, for making this happen. And I have been your humble servant, Henry Costa. Have yourselves a lovely evening. Bye-bye.